Baruch atah Adonai Go'al Yisrael. We now continue with a reading from Dr. King about comments given about War and Peace that Dr. King made in December 1964, to be read by Bonita Bay.
World peace through nonviolent means is neither absurd nor unattainable. All other methods have failed. Thus, we must begin anew. Nonviolence is a good starting point. Those of us who believe in this method can be voices of reason, sanity, and understanding amid the voices of violence, hatred, and emotion. We can very well set a mood of peace out of which a system of peace can be built.
Thank you, Bonita. We continue with another reading from a very famous one from the letter from the Birmingham jail, to be read by Sue Goldberg.
If the cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail. Because the goal of America is freedom, abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny.
Thank you, Sue. We continue with Ufrot Salenu and the Hashkivenu on page 160.
Ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la.
Thank you very much for all that have read. I'd like to now introduce our dear Rabbi Emeritus, or one of our Rabbi Emeriti, Rabbi Arthur Abrams, who's going to speak to us about one of his experiences during the civil rights era. Rabbi Abrams.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I love you, Cantor and Dana, and it's so nice to be a part of the congregation. And this service is so special. I want to tell you what a contrast Martin Luther King was with his preaching nonviolence against what we are seeing today. He was our hero. The king called and the rabbis followed. He was a personality that could have been the leader of our country if he had continued to live. We loved him. He was good. He was a friend of the Jewish people. He was a friend of Israel. And he preached nonviolence, and he got the civil rights movement together. I'd like to read to you an article that was in the religious section of the Arizona Republic in 1999 on Passover by Rabbi Arthur Abrams. Passover is a festival that encompasses all facets of Judaism. Its message is freedom, celebrating the exodus of the Hebrew slaves from intolerance. Millions of immigrants to these shores were fleeing religious and political persecution. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. referred to Moses and the Hebrews in his civil rights speeches. Let my people go has been the slogan of countless freedom movements since ancient times, and Passover sends out a message that God is working in history and helps humanity attain freedom from subjugation. What a great and powerful statement. I am the Lord who brought you out of the house of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Martin Luther King was a hero to us. We followed him, and I spoke with him at different rallies and marched with him. Claire and I marched to Washington when they passed the voting law by Lyndon Johnson. And I was a member of the U.S. Commission of Civil Rights in Kansas, and I had hearings to try to make sure that people were working together fairly, and there was civil rights among the people who were working in Kansas. I've been an advocate of civil rights and civil liberties all my career, and I promoted equal laws between Jews and blacks. And we have a lot in common. And the United States of America should be proud of the fact that civil rights were entertained in this country without major violence. And let us hope and pray that we will be able to continue on in this country without violence. Thank you so much, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Now, Rabbi Abrams, what year did you become a rabbi?
Pardon me?
What year were you ordained?
1961. I've been a rabbi for 60 years. Can you believe it? 60 years and still holding.
And when you became a rabbi in 1961, the civil rights movement was just in its infancy.
In its beginnings, right. And it was a major struggle to bring it about, but it was done by Martin Luther King without violence. Remember that. He preached non-violence, contrasted to what's going on today in our country. We should have leaders like him to be able to keep us on a peaceful path, and hope to God that we will be able to overcome all the strife and the violence that's going on today. So let's keep working and keep hoping that we will have a just and peaceful United States of America.
Let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Abrams. We're going to now continue with the Tefillah, beginning on page 164.
Adonai sivitai tiftachu fi yagid tehillatcha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Haya Hagadol, Hagivor Anura, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot, V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Levenevenehem, Laman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, God of our fathers and mothers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, God of Sarah, God of Rebekah, God of Rachel, and God of Leah, the great, mighty, and awesome God, transcendent God, who bestows loving kindness, creates everything out of love, remembers the love of our fathers and mothers, and brings redemption to their children's children for the sake of the divine name. Sovereign, deliverer, helper, and shield. Blessed are you, Adonai, Sarah's helper, Abraham's shield. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, ve'ezrat Sarah. I'd like to now ask our educator, Andre Ivory, to read an excerpt from the sermon, from Dr. King's sermon, Loving Your Enemies, delivered at Dexter Baptist Church on November 17th, 1957.
Love your enemies. It is this, that love has within it a redemptive power. And there is a power there that eventually transforms individuals. Just keep being friendly to a person. Just keep loving them, and they can't stand it too long. Oh, they react in many ways in the beginning. They react with guilt feelings, and sometimes they'll hate you a little more at that transition period, but just keep loving them. And by the power of your love, they will break down under the load. That's love, you see. There's something about love that builds up and is creative. There's something about hate that tears down and is destructive. So love your enemies.
Thank you, Andre. We continue with Ata Gibor, page 168.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי הכל, אתה רב להושיע. מקרקר חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברגבים רבים. סומך נובלים ורופא חולים, ומטר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו. Lishnei Ava, mi chamocha ba'al geburot, u'mida melach, melech memit, u'machayei, u'matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'amanata l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol.
I'd like to now ask our first vice president and chair of the Social Action Committee, Faye Henning Bryant, to please read Dr. King, an excerpt from Dr. King's speech upon a visit to Cornell University on October 15th, 1962.
People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other.
And now I'd like to ask Judy and Ethan Bender, grandmother and grandson, to please read from the very famous Dr. King speech, I Have a Dream, delivered August 28th, 1963. And then we'll follow that with a moment of silent prayer and meditation.
I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out of the true meaning of the creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with a governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see its light.
This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
This will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Rather than sing Ose Shalom tonight, it seems appropriate to sing We Shall Overcome, but through the wisdom of Rabbi Hillel, who of course taught us, if not now, when, we're going to sing We Shall Overcome today. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome today. Our God will see us through. Our God will see us through. Our God will see us through today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe our God will see us through today. We will live in peace. We will live in peace. We will live in peace today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we will live in peace today.
Thank you very much, both of you, for that lovely rendition. We turn now to the Mishaberach on page 371, as we remember all those who are in need of healing. I just spoke this afternoon with Dr. Miles Rosenthal, who's recovering to some degree, and I want to put his name on the Mishaberach list. We have the entire list that has been sent from the office, and this is a good time for you to start typing in additional names of friends and relatives that you'd like us to think about as we pray for healing.
Mishaberach avotenu, Mekor Avracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Yisheberach imotenu, Mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to this Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. special Shabbat. We want to pray especially intently tonight because we know that our country has many deficits and many problems, which for a series of reasons that have all come together are suddenly emerging almost at once, seemingly out of nowhere, but of course, they've been there all along. And so it seems a very appropriate time to go back to the words and the thought, and most importantly, the deeds of Dr. King. I, of course, never met Dr. King, unlike Rabbi Abrams, but I was the rabbi for 10 years in Albany, Georgia, where the civil rights movement made their first efforts to change American society. And so I heard not so much from participants, but from the children and grandchildren of participants. And as memories tend to go from generation to generation, it wasn't really that clear what had happened. So I'd like to start off by reading from a speech that Dr. King delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. on August 28th, 1963. If I remember correctly, Rabbi Abrams said that he'd been ordained in 1961. And so the early 60s were not really part of the 60s, even if that makes sense. The 60s only started in 1963 or even later. And so it's very hard, even for those of us who were alive then, even for those of us who were adults then, to put ourselves back into a time that was in some ways so different from now. And in other ways, unfortunately, we've seen how little things have changed. And Dr. King stood up there on those steps and he said the following words: 50 years ago, a great American whose symbolic shadow we stand signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon, light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But Dr. King continued, 100 years later, it was actually 100 years exactly, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society and finds himself an exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. I mean, you can hear in his words so many decades later the power, the sincerity, the rhetorical repetition, which serves so effectively to mark the injustices of that time and of this time. That same year, Dr. King came to Birmingham, Alabama to address the National Conference of Religion and Race. And he declared that two segregated souls never meet in God. Segregation denies the sacredness of human personality. Deeply rooted in our religious heritage is a conviction that every man is an heir to a legacy of dignity and worth. Our Judeo-Christian tradition refers to this inherited dignity of man in the biblical term, in the image of God, right? We have that B'Tselem Elohim. The image of God is universally shared in equal terms by all men. The tragedy of segregation is that it treats all men rather than ends and thereby reduces them to things rather than persons. The churches and synagogues have an opportunity and a duty to lift up their voices like a trumpet and declare unto the people the immorality of segregation. We must affirm that every human life is a reflex of divinity, and every act of injustice mars and defaces the image of God in man. And of course, you have to understand that he was speaking many decades ago. He speaks of men and not women, but we understand that he was referring to all people, men and women, black and white, all people, all Americans of all backgrounds. One of the most important events that occurred during this period was that he was arrested in Birmingham, and a number of clergy from that city wrote him a letter asking him to stop the activist approach. And as Andre said, Dr. King was completely committed to non-violent protest, right? So, and this is something so important as our country is threatened with the prospect of further violence, of violence that could potentially escalate far beyond what we have seen this past week in Washington, D.C. But Dr. King was in favor of direct, nonviolent confrontation, not just saying, let's negotiate, let's talk, let's plan for another 5 or 10 years to bring justice and equality a little closer. But we have to do something now, something nonviolent, but something activist, something direct that will make people aware right now that things need to change. And so these clergy, which included Rabbi Milton Grafman of the Birmingham's Large Reform Temple, and whose rabbinic robes I have, although I haven't worn them in this congregation because they're black, and Rabbi Moss was kind enough to lend me his blue robes. But I carry Rabbi Grafman's robes, and I have them and I may wear them at some point, which was just, a very symbolic, if very marginal connection to these events. And Dr. King specifically addressed Jewish themes in his written response to these clergy. And he said, "We can never forget that everything Hitler did in Germany was quote unquote legal. And everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was quote unquote illegal. It was quote unquote illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. But I am sure that if I lived in Germany during that time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers, even though it was illegal. If I lived in a communist country today," he's writing during the communist era, where certain principles dear to the Christian faith are suppressed, I believe I would openly advocate disobeying those anti-religious laws. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the last few years, I have been greatly disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in the stride toward freedom is not the White Citizens Council or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I can't agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically feels that he can set a timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by the myth of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait until a quote unquote more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. And so this is a challenge to us because we're in a community where we have a tremendous diversity of political viewpoints, of religious viewpoints, of social viewpoints. We have 240 members, and we have probably close to 240 different perspectives. So how, on one hand, do we advocate for what we think might be true and push forward with determination now and not in the future, with activism and not with passivity? And on the other hand, avoid rupturing our sense of camaraderie, our sense of consensus, our desire to avoid taking strong positions for the sake of shalom bayit, the peace in the house. And so we don't really know how we can solve this. But Dr. King's words ring in our ears and give us a sense that however we want to move forward, we have to challenge ourselves and try to figure out a way to avoid falling into the trap of we'll do something when everyone agrees, because nobody is ever going to reach the point where everyone agrees. And yet, on the other hand, we don't want to increase conflict, God forbid, and start fighting among ourselves. And so this is a challenge. This is a very difficult task. But life is hard, and being a modern, ethical, religious, liberal person, as each of us aspire to be, is a difficult task in modern society, in any society. And so Dr. King is as if he's speaking to each of us individually, personally, right here, right now. How do we make this society in Arizona, throughout the country, throughout the world, a better one, a more just one, a more equal one? And how do we do that without increasing the sense of conflict and division that is already so deep in our community, in our society, in our country, and throughout our world? And so the words of Dr. King and the legacy of Dr. King are very much applicable to our situation today. And it's a situation that requires, that calls out to us for urgent action, for some sort of remediation, for a process that can help to make the world a better place, as we in the Reform movement say, litaken et olam, to fix, to repair, to make pure the entire world. And so with that, I wish you a Shabbat Shalom as we turn now to the Torah reading of Parashat Vayera. If you have a Tanakh at home or a Torah at home, which I hope everybody has, you can open it now to the book of Exodus, chapter 6, verse 2, all the way to chapter 9, verse 35. Bernie Feinberg is going to both read the Torah and chant the blessings. He's not going to read the entire Parsha, hopefully. But I want to thank Bernie for volunteering and ask him now to step forward for the Aliyah and for the Kriyat Torah. Bernie, over to you.
Thank you. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe kabed lev paro me'ein lishlach ha'am. Lech el paro baboker hine yotze hamaima v'nitzavta likrato al sfat hayaor v'hamate asher nefach l'nachash tikach biadecha. And Adonai said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is heavy. He has refused to let the people out. Go to Pharaoh in the morning. Behold, he is going forth to the water, and you shall stand opposite him on the bank of the Nile. And the staff that was turned into a serpent you shall take in your hand. Ve'amarta elav Adonai Elohei ha'ivrim shalachani elecha lemor shalach et ami v'yavduni b'midbar v'hinei lo shamata ad ko. Ko amar Adonai b'zot teda ki ani Adonai hine anochi makeh b'mateh asher b'yadi al hamayim asher Vayor v'nehefhu ladam. And you shall say to him, Adonai of the Hebrews sent me to you, saying, send forth my people, so that they may serve me in the desert. But behold, unto now you have not hearkened. So said Adonai, with this you will know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the staff that is in my hand upon the water that is in the Nile, and it will turn to blood. B'hadaga asher b'yaor tamut, uva'esh hayaor, v'nil'u mitzrayim lishtot mayim min hayaor. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, emor el Aharon, kach mitcha unte yadcha al memei mitzrayim, al naharotam, al yerehem, ve'al agmehem, ve'al kol mikva memeihem. V'yehudam v'hayadam b'chol eretz Mitzrayim uva'etzim uva'avanim. And the fish that are in the Nile will die, and the Nile will become putrid, and the Egyptians will weary in their efforts to drink water from the Nile. Adonai said to Moses, Say to Aaron, take your staff and stretch forth your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their rivers, over their canals, over their ponds, and over all their bodies of water, and they will become blood. And there will be blood throughout the entire land of Egypt, even in wood and in stone. V'yasu chen Moshe v'Aaron kasher tziva Adonai, v'yorem b'mateh v'yach et hamayim asher ba'or le'enei paro u'le'enei avadav v'yehefchu kol hamayim asher ba'or ladam. V'hagdaga asher ba'or meta u'yivaesh hayor v'lo yachlu Mitzrayim lishtot mayim min hayor v'yehi hadam v'chol eretz Mitzrayim. And Moses and Aaron did so, as the Lord had commanded. And he raised the staff and struck the water that was in the Nile before the eyes of Pharaoh and before the eyes of his servants, and all the water that was in the Nile turned to blood. And the fish that were in the Nile died, and the Nile became putrid, and Egyptians could not drink water from the Nile, and there was blood throughout the entire land of Egypt. V'yasu chen hartumei Mitzrayim belatehem v'yachazak lev paro v'lo shama alehem kasher diber Adonai v'yifen paro v'yavo et beito v'lo shat libo gam lazot v'yat Paru kol Mitzrayim sevivot hayor mayim lishtot kilo yachlu lishtot mimemei hayor. And the magicians of Egypt did likewise with their secret rites, and Pharaoh's heart was steadfast, and he did not heed them as Adonai had spoken. Pharaoh turned and went home, and he paid no heed even to this. All the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink from the water of the Nile. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד and on that day Adonai will be one. And on that day, God's name will be one.
We turn now to the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. I read the Kaddish list. If there's additional names of loved ones or friends, please type them into the message box. We remember the recent death of Danette Kearns, Andre's beloved sister, and we mourn with Andre and his entire family. We remember the yahrzeits of Mordechai ben Shmuel, the father of Bert Stoloff, Benjamin Berkowitz, the father of Arnie Berkowitz, Robert Fader, the brother of Maxine I. Datesman, Morris Feinberg, the father of Bernie Feinberg, and Bernie read the Torah in memory of his father. Pauline Friedman, the mother of Shelley Hammerslag, Saul R. Glass, a relative of Judy Fagan, Sherman L. Goldberg, the husband of Sue Goldberg, who also did a reading tonight in his memory. David Halabi, the husband of Linda Weiss Halabi, Shirley Hilfinger, the mother-in-law of Susie Swisslow's daughter, Ben H. Kramer, the father-in-law of Arlette Kramer, Arvid Q. Longmire, the father of Bonnie Longmire, Benjamin Joel Mandel, the son of Judy Maggi, Joseph Miller, the father of Leon Miller, Stanley Mandel, the father of Dane Mandel, Charles Myers, the father of Jeffrey Myers, Josephine H. Robbins, the mother of Russ Robbins, Rose Rosenberg, the mother of Reva Litt, Ruth Rosenkrantz, the mother of Edith Spring, Erwin Rumakowski, the husband of Libby Rumakowski, Helen Schnell, the mother of Tamar Myers, Bruce Shanis, the son of Joseph and Myrna Shanis, Leon Teplin, the husband of Carol Teplin, Abel Toby, the father of Jack Toby, Rose Turek, the grandmother of Roberta Adem, and Jeanette S. Young, the mother of Shari Young. We remember all of them and all of those who have been typed into the message box in memoriam as we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish on page 598. We join together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash me Rabbah v'alma dibra krute v'amlich malchute b'chayechon b'yomechon u'b'chayed kol beit Yisrael Ba'gala ubisman kariv v'yamru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam ulamei almaya yitborach v'yishtabach v'yitpo'ar v'yitraman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalel v'yitalal shmei dekutsha brichu le'la min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata Damiram bi alma v'yamru. Amen. Yehi shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yamru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and all humanity, to which we say, Amen. We continue now with the anthem, which this week appropriately is The Dreamer and the Dream.
If I may just note, I wanted to write a song to honor Dr. King's dream, but I wanted to poeticize it a little. So I took the essence of the ideas, as many as I could, and wrote my own words. The benefit of that is I can really do it as my own, but it's for Dr. King. I have a dream that hatred and war will cease. I have a dream of brotherhood and peace. I have a dream far-reaching and mighty deep. I have a dream, a promise I must keep. Hear the dream at its creation, sing hope for those in need. Feel the dream of inspiration, bring courage to succeed. I have a dream, our future is bright and fair. I have a dream to nurture with great care. I have a dream that life is its own birthright. I have a dream to guide us toward the light. join the dream, and we will greet each day with plans of worth. Let the stream of kindness lead our way to a heaven on earth. I have a dream, harmonious and powerful. I have a dream that honors one and all. Awakened from sleep, united with one great theme, soon to succeed this dreamer with a dream. For you will become the dreamer and the dream.
Wow. Thank you. We now turn to the Kiddush and the Hamotzi. Cantor, do you have Kiddush one over there?
I sure do.
Okay, I've got a Kiddush cup over here. Yeah, there's wine down there, but I'll stay up here.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahavah u'ratzon hikilanu, zikaron l'maaseh bereshit, yom tehila l'mikrei kodesh, zeher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta, otanu kidashta, Mikol Amim, B'Shabbat Kodsecha, Ba'ava Uvratzon, Inchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mikadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. You ready?
I'm ready.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
And now we come to the final benediction, and then closing remarks from educator Ivory, and then one final song from the cantor, Lift Every Voice and Sing. So we turn now to the final benediction. Want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom.
Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Ken yehi ratzon.
May God bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha.
Ken yehi ratzon.
May God's light shine upon you, and may God be gracious to you.
Yiso Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Ken yehi ratzon.
May you feel God's presence within you always, and may you find peace, have health, and most importantly, embrace love within yourselves. And let us all say,
Amen.
It was in a car ride in 1986 that I was first introduced to this song. It was not the original version, but the more popular version, which is sung by Melba Moore, which she did in the 1970s. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. It was my sister who introduced me to this song. It was a reminder of something that Dr. King said in his last speech the night before his tragic assassination. Stand up tall, because if you lean over, then they can lean on you. Stand up tall. And in return, lift up others. Because right now, we need to lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings with the harmony of liberty. Only then will we see Dr. King's dream become a reality. I want to thank all who participated with readings this evening. Yasher Koach to Rabbi Abrams for, I was moved to tears by his memories. But let's not leave this a dream. It's time for us to wake up and make all of this a reality. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the harsh past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory has won. And the last verse. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, God who has brought us through far on the way, God who by your might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met you. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, forget you. Shadowed beneath your hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Shabbat Shalom. Good job, Angie.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. What a beautiful
Shabbat shalom.
service, huh? Shabbat shalom.
Yes, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Lovely.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Hey, hi, Larry.
Shalom, be well.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Service.
Miriam.
Good night, everybody.
That's your friend.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. And it was such a beautiful, beautiful service tonight.
Agree.
Whole job. Beautiful
Yes,
reading.
good
of the
job,
Torah.
Bernie.
Bernie, you did a masterful job with your Hebrew.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah,
Very well done, Bernie.
we appreciated that.
Yashikov.